Melissa. I'll be expressing the moderate standpoint, so I'll agree with both of them and disagree on different issues. First, I believe it's ridiculous to have to swear on the Bible in order to be inaugurated. I think swearing on the Constitution would be more religiously inclusive, and it would simply be more logical, because the Constitution is what they are swearing to protect, not the Bible. If they're not a believer in the Bible, then their oath will be meaningless and void. I believe this is not the Christian nation in a legal sense, and in the sense that it was not founded on the Christian religion. Perhaps on Christian morality, it could be argued, but not on religion. Many of our founding fathers were deists and Unitarians, and some had religious beliefs that would be declared heretical by Orthodox Christians. Therefore, we cannot claim that this is a Christian nation unless we mean it in a strictly social sense, because 78% of Americans profess to be Christian. I believe creationism, or intelligent design, should be mentioned in science textbooks. I think some kind of creator is a very logical hypothesis for the origin of life and of the universe. At the very least, it should be mentioned because a large number of scientists agree that there is some kind of higher power, and the book should be more honest about the flaws in theory of evolution. I believe in God we trust does not need to be removed from our money. We simply need a broader understanding of the word God. All of the letters are capitalized. If we imagine God with a lowercase g, it opens up a whole new avenue of interpretation. I could see God as the Christian God. A Muslim could see God as Allah. A Wiccan could see God as being the higher power behind the God and Goddess. And an atheist could see God as being science. A materialist could see God as money. That's the very object in question. And if I run money, we trust. But I digress. I believe under God should be removed from the Pledge of Allegiance. I see at least two differences between the pledge issue and the money issue previously mentioned. For one thing, a pledge is recited, affirmed. I know it's technically not required, but with all the students around you reciting it, you feel a lot of pressure to recite it. So essentially, it is required. The very act of reciting it applies agreement. And having a phrase like, "In God we trust on money," doesn't make you agree at all. But reciting a pledge,
I have to say, Melissa took a lot of fire out of my argument right there. The first issue that I would like to address, and I would like to start by saying that I am an atheist. I represent an extremely secularist position on the interpretation of the formation and separation of church and state. Just so you know where I'm coming from. To follow up on Melissa's statements, the Founding Fathers were mostly deists. There were some Christians among them, but the difference between a deist and a Christian is pretty profound. Deists profess that there is some form of creationary force, but not really involved in any way. So no miracles, no raising from the dead, none of that. So this is Washington, Hamilton, Paine, Jefferson, Benjamin, all these men. And so saying that they intended for there to be a legal basis for the United States to be based in Christianity is I think, a heavy stretch. The Constitution, the origin of the authority for the Constitution is "we the people." First opening phrase of it, "we the people." Now Magna Carta makes a direct reference to God right off the bat. That's the origin of authority there. But "we the people" is the origin of authority for the Constitution and all the law that we profess. It's consensus, it's a social contract. It has nothing to do with God says, therefore. The only time religion is mentioned in the Constitution is to forbid a religious test for the holding of office. That is the only time that religion is actually mentioned in the Constitution. The First Amendment goes on to forbid the state from establishing a religion, which the Founding Fathers knew had basically been the history of Europe, had been shaped by religious war, or war justified by religion, and they didn't want that kind of sectarian violence in the United States. So with this new social experiment they were starting, they said, nix it, we're not going to have it. There's going to be a firm separation between the two. And it worked out. In fact, the origin of the statement, separation of church and state, was from a letter that Jefferson wrote while he was ambassador of France to the Danbury Baptists here in the United States. They were afraid that the Congregationalists were going to get in power in Virginia and oppress them. So he wrote them a letter saying, be thankful that the Founding Fathers set in this separation, this wall of separation between church and state. That's the origin of the statement. Article 11 of the Treaty of Tripoli, actually, which I have a copy of here. Very interesting. The Treaty of Tripoli was a treaty that we made with the Barbary Coast while they were pirating us, basically. It was a part of the Ottoman Empire at the time, and their justification for the rampant piracy was, we're a bunch of heretics. We are, by the Hadith, allowed to take whatever we want from you. You can't, that's the legal basis. And in response, the government under John Adams wrote back, the first sentence of the Article 11 of this treaty is, as the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. That is another argument right there. This treaty was 1 page long, and John Adams read it aloud to Congress before it was passed. It was unanimously voted approved, and it was printed in 3 of the major newspapers in the United States at the time, and it came under no criticism. So, you know, that's pretty solid right there that the Founding Fathers, who were all in office at the time, this was only a few years after the separation from England, you know, intended for there to be a firm separation, and that the United States was not in fact founded on the religion of Christianity. Again, I would agree with Melissa in that we're definitely culturally Christian. We have a Christian cultural background from the West. But in law, certainly not. The founders of our country knew a lot about the dangers of theocracy. Thank you. And this was the measure that took to protect us. And the major point that I want to make regarding contemporary mixtures of church and state is that this is a 78% Christian country, and we're also a democracy, which means that we vote on our law. In a democracy, the majority wins. If we do not, any cross between church and state will result in Christianity winning out at the exclusion of other religions, even if the intent is for it to be equal. Because if we allow it to be religious referendums to be voted on, we live in a 75% Christian nation. There's no way that Wicca, Judaism, Islam can compete. The Constitution is there to protect minorities against the tyranny of the majority. And this is a very, very important barrier to control. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning / afternoon. My name is Keith Wynn, and I'm here to represent Attila the Hun. A little further to the right than he is, but I'm sure we know all his stuff. I'm a 17-year-old high school senior, and listening to other people, I realized that my speech is a little bit different. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the philosophical and historical aspects of the Constitution than as talking about simple practical aspects of actually determining whether or not church and state should separate it. So our first question is historical. What exactly did the Founding Fathers believe about Christianity in the Constitution? Now, Mike gave an example of the Tripoli Agreement. Well, the same person that had the agreement, John Adams, said this: the general principles on which the founders achieved independence were the general principles of Christianity. Sounds pretty clear to me. He went on to say the Holy Ghost carries on the whole Christian system in the earth. Not a baptism, not a marriage, not a sacrament can be administered without the Holy Ghost. There is no authority, civil or rebellion or religious. There can be no legitimate government that is not administered by this Holy Ghost. That sounds pretty clear to me. John Adams, again, said that we need, in order to have a good government, we need to have some type of religion. Now, I'm not here to talk about necessarily Christianity. I'm here to talk about religion and its role in government. So the second question is, why do we need religion in government? At this point, in 2008, at the beginning of a new century, we as Americans have a powerful question to answer. With all of the advances in science and technology, we citizens of the United States have the capacity to do more than any other generation. We can protect the environment, defeat terrorism, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. We can educate the masses and destroy ignorance. But with this power comes not just the harbinger of an age of greatness, but the possibility for a terror the world has never before known. We have the ability not just to educate, but to terrorize, not just to protect, but to oppress. The future has never looked so bright or had the possibility for looking so dark.